Hey all. Good morning. I am definitely not coming on here to like try to be mysterious. Like it's just very my camera is acting a plumb fool. So I'm gonna see if I can try to actually like fix it. I think this is what happens when you like walk away from your computer and you try to like log in a little early. So like give me 1 second, y'all. Okay. I'm here. I was like, what in the name of all that is good and green on this planet is going on? All right. So let me just do my little test. I have to make sure my audio is on point. Yep. Okay. That's on point. Let's check out my YouTube. Okay. Yep. There we go. Okay, y'all. I am back. I am back. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. And as I am pulling up the slides and the topic for today, I actually just want to open this with an acknowledgement of, especially if you are an American living in the United States of America, or you're an American in like progress because you're, pursuing your citizenship. You got the spirit, but you're just trying to get the papers in order, etc. Today for us is going to be, I realize, a very stressful day, a day full of anxiety and just basically a day that we're all just kind of like closing our eyes really tight and white knuckling our ways through. And so I want to start off just by like acknowledging that and also please asking you to take care of yourselves today, whatever that means. If you need to, grab a coffee and like, just chill out for the day, or a tea, or like, some wine, although I would suggest you do that after 12 o'clock, but I'm not judging. Whatever it is you have to do to just make sure that your mental health is together and on point, just your spirit is together and being supported, do that. I was delighted to find out just this morning as I was looking through comments and everything of that nature that I actually have a couple of followers who are not United States citizens who live abroad in Europe and what have you, and welcome. And I'm so blessed and I'm so humble to have you, with me here as we go through like these little writing lessons. And so I also don't want to, I want to make sure that I'm not excluding everyone who might be on this live, but I did want to put out a very heartfelt I love you and I feel you and I'm here with you in spirit to my fellow Americans who, today might be stressful. Let's put it this way. Today is going to be stressful for everybody. Tomorrow is definitely going to be super insanely stressful for at least half of the country. Let's put it that way. Um, and in certain ways, like I don't take that lightly. And I'm not gonna like speak about like my political leanings here on the channel this morning because we have to get to writing and stuff like that. But we do have to acknowledge that politics and just the climate has been very, very toxic and very, very perilous, honestly, for the past decade. Um, I don't think that I have seen an election, and I've been around for almost going on 4 decades now, almost, although the skin wouldn't be able to tell you that. But anyway, moving on. I have been around to see a bunch of elections, and I don't think I've ever had elections wherein like I felt as though the outcome could literally determine my personal individual safety, except in the past 10 years. Like, you know what I'm saying? Well, really, yeah, like the past 10 years. Um, I never felt going to the polls or existing, just like in a certain political space or body. Well, as a Black American, that's a whole another can of worms. So I won't say never, but I never thought that the outcome of an election would determine whether or not I have to look over my shoulder. And so this is something that I know a lot of Americans feel. And that, hopefully at the end of the day, we can just stay, you know, united in the idea and the fact that like we are essentially all American and that we all belong here, and there is space for everyone. So that's all I have to say. Take care of yourself. My heart goes out to you. Give your love to me because I'm also stressed out. It's like very barely, thinly veiled right now. But anyway, let's move forward because I don't want to, again, hijack this entire call. Let's jump on, I guess, in the vein of all of that angst, right? Let's talk about internal conflict. Okay. Um, we had a very, I think, productive lesson yesterday where I gave you guys my perspective and also like Jen Grisanti's perspective on how to build a character through focusing on their critical history, right? Today, we're going to talk about how to further deepen that journey. Because frankly, as my title says here in the bottom, as my little headline tagline says, if there's not any internal conflict, then nobody cares. And that nobody includes your main character. Okay, I'll say that again. Without internal conflict, no one cares, including and especially your main character. All right. So, in that vein, let's very super quickly review what we went over yesterday, right? About the different elements of a character's critical history. We're going over this because the critical history is going to be the thing that powers our character's ongoing internal conflict. So, just to review, when you're building a character's critical history, you want to include a traumatic event or an impactful event, aka, as they say in the Spider-Verse, a canon event that has changed them forever. All right. And I would pick the most prime main event that their personality made a clear shift around. Number two, resulting wounds. What was the irrevocable damage that was done by them facing this canonical event? Number three, because they're now cut open and essentially bleeding, what is their fear, right? So they got wounded by this past event. Now, what's the fear that they carry for the rest of their days because of that event, because of the wounds, because of how deeply impacted they were? Number four, the wound and the fear combined are going to determine how your character looks at the world and how they interpret the world, right? So if you've gotten really, really hurt by somebody in the past, like in a romantic relationship, or you got screwed over by a colleague at work, your narrative going forward might be, I don't really deal or get close to work colleagues like that because they cannot be trusted, right? And you'll like stay away from that, like against all common sense. Even if there are some clear advantages to like, networking, you're still going to be powered by your narrative that people in the workplace can't be trusted and I'm just going to do me. Same thing in relationships, right? You might be wounded from something that really happens and hurt you in the past. And you're like, listen, I'm good on love. I don't need that right now. I don't need to be vulnerable. I'm never going to be vulnerable again. And that comes out of the wound of what happened to you in those situations. And it created a fear. It created a fear of being attached, being vulnerable, and connecting. So, what is the narrative? What is the worldview? What are the assumptions that the character makes based on their wound and their fear? And how do these assumptions impact how your character moves throughout the world? That is the narrative and worldview. What is the flaw, right? The flaw might be that you are invulnerable, cold, apathetic. You don't really take things or people seriously. Instead of leaning into, being a compassionate, open person, you might withdraw and say, you got it. I can't really deal with this and I won't deal with this. What is the flaw? Then you have the character's goal All right. I guess since I'm on a thread of like a character being hurt in the past, let's say that now the new goal for the character is just to kind of live their lives solo dolo, be at peace, be just like be alone and, get money. Maybe they're like, okay, relationships and friendships, that's clapped, that's clipped. I don't care about those. Now all I care about is getting my money up and having peace in my life, solo dolo, right? And depending on how that situation impacted the character, the way in which they pursue their goal of money and solitude might be very different now than how they would have done this before, right? So maybe when they were more collaborative or they were more interested in romantic or friendship or collegial partnership, their ethics around achieving a goal might be very collaborative. Like their view was, hey, we need to all tides rise, no, all rising tides raise all boats, right? So we need to work together, row together to like get this money, to achieve our dreams, to build this business, right? That might have been their ethics before the canonical event. Their ethics now are everybody else in the world is brutal and self-centered and self-serving and all about them. I'm going to be brutal, self-serving, self-centered, and all about me, right? So the ethics are the ways and the means by which they're going to achieve this new goal. All right. And then you want to develop the inciting incident, the resulting dilemma, and then the stakes. So that's just a review of like how you're going to build the character's critical history. And then we'll move on to our development of the character's internal conflict. Okay. So even though the character themselves, and I actually don't have any written notes on this today. So if you're listening, just try to pull out the big parts that work for you or take down key notes, just FYI. Um, just because the character has decided on a new goal, a new set of ethics, a new way of being, it doesn't mean that their life is perfect. Actually, their life is demonstrably imperfect. Okay. So let's take Joel, for example, from The Last of Us. He has gone through hell after having lost his daughter. He has a new goal, new perspective, old wounds, old fears, and some really shady ethics about how he's going to achieve his goal, which is to survive and to like stay away from people, right? But it doesn't mean that at like his state of being is a happy one. It doesn't mean that his life or the way that he lives out his day-to-day, activities is fulfilling or productive or you know what I'm saying? Like it's still a very tumultuous status quo for him. And in that tumultuous status quo is where you're going to bring out that internal conflict. All right. Um, we should see the character when you're developing internal conflict and you have the critical history. The internal conflict is basically because it's ongoing, like, and because it is, how do you say, because it's ongoing and because the character demonstrates the dysfunction of this internal conflict every day, we should be able to pick out a scene in that character's current modern day life and be able to read the conflict all throughout that one scene. And we should also be able to read their internal conflict through how their lack of healing themselves is impacting them negatively. Okay. So to go back to our example from yesterday with Detective Spooner from iRobot, right? We have his critical history in front of us. But how is it that we know that there's something not quite right with Detective Spooner? Even though he's settled on this status quo, he's not happy. He's angry, and that comes out in the way he treats robots who are walking around just trying to like make it do what it do and be helpful to humanity. He's very rude to them, pushes them, is disrespectful to them, talks down to them, right? He also is having some repetitive recurring dreams about that traumatic situation where he and the girl almost drowned and then the the robot saved him instead of the girl. He keeps having these dreams, and the dreams are haunting him, right? He literally, in the first scene, I think he wakes up, or in this, maybe in the second scene, he wakes up and he literally like puts a gun to his head. I don't think that he's like trying to pull the trigger, but he's like hitting his temple. He's like, oh, get out of there, get out of there. Basically trying to command these horrible flashback dreams to get out of his head. He's haunted by the past. So we see that he's bothered by that. We see that he's bothered by the robots. We see that he's always on high alert and always looking to chase down and catch a robot doing something badly, okay? Or doing something bad. We can also see that he has a very distant and how do you say, he's not bullied at work, but he's not really accepted and integrated in with his colleagues at work because everybody else has accepted the reality that robots are a part of their day-to-day lives, right? They've accepted it. He is the outcast and he's treated as such. People kind of snicker behind his back. And when he walks into the police station, 2 cops or 3 cops are like making fun of him because he chased down this robot who actually wasn't doing anything wrong. The robot was just running some medication to its owner. But Spooner, thinking that this robot was doing something bad, chased this robot down, got into a whole conflict, and got cussed out by the robot's owner. And so now he's, going through this embarrassment, and we see that he is ridiculed and condescended to because of his perspective on robots. He's alone, he's isolated, and he also feels as though he's like the last sane man on the planet, right? So even though we haven't even looked at his critical history yet, we don't know at this point in the movie every single thing he's gone through, we can tell that his life sucks. Like, we can really tell. And this is actually something that I love in terms of like using scenes to express to the reader or to the viewer, right? Everything that is currently wrong with this character's life because of his critical history. And actually, because I love to give credit where credit is due, that is not a concept that I created. That is a concept that I am borrowing from Blake Snyder's Save the Cat. So when we get to the actual book of the day or the books of the day, I am going to add Blake Snyder's Save the Cat in there because he is the one who tells you at the very first 10 minutes of the movie, you need to have at least 6 things wrong. You guys can't see all my hands up, but 5 and 6. You need to have at least 6 things wrong or going wrong with the character that we see on the screen or that we see on the page, right? That come directly out of the character's critical history. And those 6 things need to grow out of the character's internal conflict and internal struggle, right? In this case, Spooner's internal struggle is the fact that he's surrounded by a whole world that he does not inherently trust and that has hurt him in the past. And that world is the world of robotics, right? And so we need to see 6 ways in which this conflict internally manifests on the outside or what have you, right? Because ultimately, when we're trying to tell compelling and especially cinematic stories, we need to show as opposed to tell. And I would actually say that this is the case even in novel writing. I think novelists get a little bit more flexibility and leeway when we are putting together our stories because we have the power of different types of perspectives. First person perspective, second person in that series, you, for example, perspective, third person, third person limited, third person omniscient, third person like, direct limited or what have you. I use third person limited. I really enjoy that perspective, but I'm also exploring first person. And like in those different perspectives, there is a certain level of telling, right? But I think it's more powerful to show a character's internal conflict through their interactions with other people and the world around them. So I guess if I were to give you an activity, and I will give you an activity in a second when it comes to internal conflict, but if I were to give you an alternative activity, I would guide you towards the Blake Snyder's 6 Things Wrong character, 6 things wrong with your character activity, where you're going to list out or refresh yourself on the character's critical history. And then you're going to write down 6 ways in which those flaws, that fear, that wounds, and that internal conflict is manifesting itself in the character's life. Okay. Um, Essentially, too, and I guess I'll sort of wrap up on this point. It's a super short point today. I think we should actually do more writing than talking today. One thing that I do think is important to recognize, and we'll talk about this in a couple of days, is that the internal conflict is going to be essentially in direct opposition to what is expected of the character in the external conflict, right? So if I'm going to use this one last movie and as an example, Edge of Tomorrow, right? Edge of Tomorrow is a movie that it's honestly one of the best sci-fi movies ever. One of them, not the best, but definitely up there. And I say that as somebody who's super picky about her sci-fi. Um, the main character's main flaw and internal struggle in the beginning is his cowardice. He is a straight up coward. Okay. He is not a fighter and he does not believe that the fighting should be done by him. So he does everything he can and says everything he can to stay out of the fight against the mimics, right? But literally, the movie thrusts him into a situation where not only is he required to fight, he's required to fight the same day over and over and over again. It's like super amazing sci-fi meets Groundhog Day, right? And by the way, while we're talking about Edge of Tomorrow, it was actually adapted from a Japanese anime and manga. So the Japanese anime slash manga came first. And then, of course, we appropriated, sorry, adapted. I'm sure they did that legally. At least I hope. But they adapted the story from that anime to the Tom Cruise, Emily Blunt movie that you guys know and love today. But it's a really interesting perspective here, because it's like his internal conflict about wanting to stay out of the fight at all costs runs directly up against the fact that not only is he going to be thrust into the conflict, he's going to be thrust into the conflict literally over and over and over and over and over again for eternity, until he figures out how to fix the repeating timeline and how to defeat the ultimate alien enemy. All right. So when you're developing your internal conflict, I obviously, like, I think it's good to focus on the character's internal world, but really think about what your external conflict is going to bring to the character's life, and ask yourself, are these two expectations total opposites? Because if they are not, you might have to do some more work about and around what is going on with your character, or make the external conflict a little bit more compelling. All right. Or the internal conflict more compelling. I'll give you one last quick example and then we'll break for writing. So in my series that's coming up, the Asylum Sodom series, which I'll be working on in 2025, my main character, her internal issues are really more so that she has completely drunk the Kool-Aid on this new world being the perfect meritocracy. She has compassion for those who do not succeed in this perfect meritocracy. So she does a lot of philanthropic work, a lot of charity work, a lot of community work, which is looked down upon, but she sees it as like her duty, right? To help others see the beauty of this perfect meritocracy. All right. The flaw here is that she is so blind to the fact that there are all these other mitigating factors that are withholding folks from climbing up the ladder, that she fails to see this sinister plot that's happening behind the scenes to undo her and her entire family, right? And but when she gets blindsided by the external conflict, which is her family, or her father specifically, from her view, is framed for a mass murder or what have you. And then they get cast down from their high spot in society all the way down to the bottom. Like, it forces her to take this journey where she is going to take her hyper meritocratic perspective and keep running up the reality of the fact that this world that she lives in is corrupt, right? And that no matter how hard she tries, there are certain instances where she cannot climb her way up. And she's going to get knocked around quite a bit before she realizes that she can't necessarily play by the rules that she's been playing by her entire life, right? So in this instance, her internal conflict or her internal wounds really is like her inability or unwillingness to see the reality. She is literally stuck in her own form of the matrix, right? But the external conflict is the real reality. She has her fantasy world, and the real reality is that the world is brutal, it's unfair, and that everything that she has known and come to love is essentially built on a lie, or at least some of it's built on a lie. And so she has to figure out, after trying to climb up the ladder, maybe succeeding, maybe not, and getting smacked around and knocked down in certain instances, she has to face that external conflict, which is like in direct opposition to her internal conflict, right? So having said that, let's move forward. We're going to jump right into the writing today because I've been talking a lot for the past few days, and I want us to really get into writing. Let's review really quickly, and actually let me change my view here so that, nope, less me, more you. There we go. Here are your prompts. So for sci-fi action, and actually for all of these, and you guys can read. So I'm just gonna like not waste your time with that. For each one of these, we're going to focus on your protagonist and like that canonical moment, that traumatic moment. So in sci-fi action, it's like they're haunted by a past tragedy. For dystopian, they have a fear of betrayal or exposure. For fantasy, they have unresolved trauma from a magical encounter. Fantasy romance, they carry deep-seated fears of vulnerability or abandonment due to a past betrayal or heartbreak. Or you can do whatever writing prompt you so choose. That is up to you, but feel free to read the writing prompt that is in the genre of your choice, and you can start developing a scene around what the writing prompt is telling you. Or you can just do the next chapter in your NaNoWriMo novel. It's totally and completely up to you. All right, so we're gonna have a nice, steady, 45-minute writing session. And then, of course, in the description, let me actually move this for a second. Our Colby's Cozy Cafe is open, right? And so don't forget you have these 3 amazing book fairs, free book fairs open, Sympathy for the Villain, Dystopian Fantasy, not Future. I'm going to change this because this is not even correct, but the link is correct. So click it and get your free books. And then sci-fi and fantasy novels you can get cozy with. We have our book of the day, which once again is Jen Grisanti's TV writing toolkit, being that we're still on internal conflicts. I'm also going to add in here Blake Snyder's Save the Cat. I'm going to change this, and I'm also going to add the link to the description at the end, because I think that Save the Cat is really great with internal conflict and how to manifest it, in your story. And then, of course, our Manga Madness and our Cozy Creator giveaways are still open. And we have some amazing grand prizes. And even if you don't win the grand prize, guess what? Everybody gets an entry prize and a door prize because we are all winners, okay? All right, my love. So I'm going to put the music on. Happy writing. Have a great day. And I'll be back in about 45 minutes. A 10-minute warning, team, before we close out, so keep writing. Hey, my writing kings and queens. So, this is actually probably a great time for us to wind down and to start to wrap up your writing. Or if you have time, I have to clock into work. So, I don't really have the time now, but I did get some writing done. I was getting more like editing done today on this scene where my character, the male character, is being like a total hater. He is not in a happy place right now, very much, suffering from that internal conflict stuff. So if you have time, please keep writing. I'm probably going to end up writing a little bit later in the day, but it's just nice to like get at least those 30 minutes, even if it's like 10 minutes, 5 minutes under your belt, and hit some kind of writing goal for today. I hope that you guys were able to really start digging into the internal conflict of your character. And I hope that this is actually being helpful. I'm actually getting some pretty lovely feedback from a lot of you so far. So obviously, I want to keep this up for the rest of November. And we are going to have our first live random giveaway on our live this week. I just have to choose which day. It might be tomorrow in case like some of our spirits need to be lifted. Or it might be on Friday, so that you can end the week on a great note. I don't know, but if you've been showing up, then you definitely have an opportunity to get chosen from the live participant raffle that I'm putting together to receive a really great um, random writer's gift. Okay. So hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Do not forget, once again, the Cozy Cafe is open eternally, at least to the end of the month. Grab your free books, join the giveaways. And if you've joined the giveaways already, make sure you keep checking back for opportunities to reshare the giveaway because I will be adding on new opportunities, new links. I'll let you know when that's coming. But like, just because you joined, like, don't rest on your laurels. There are still opportunities for you to get more and more entries by sharing the giveaway and doing other activities on the giveaway page. And don't forget also to invest in our 2 books of the day. I'm going to drop the other link to the book, to Blake Snyder's book, Save the Cat, so that you guys can invest in Blake Snyder and also in Jen Grisanti. Again, I do not recommend anything that has not significantly impacted my writing or has that hasn't been formative in creating my foundation. And I feel like I do have a really strong foundation in writing and storytelling, if I do say so myself. And I really want you guys to benefit from these professionals' works as well. All right, team. Have a great day. Happy writing. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.